Obviously, this is Richard from A Man About Style, and a lot of you have followed along with my blogs and vlogs and different social medias, but you probably don't know much about me. So, I decided to do a collaboration with my mother, and a lot of you who've seen my most recent Kenya vlogs know that I'm adopted, but people ask me all the time about my stories, so I enlisted someone who would know best, and so she will tell you a little bit of my story, my background, and also her experience in adoption of a child of a different race and kind of her experience. So this is a very unedited, very just raw stories. I guess what's the adoption story in short?
Okay. In short, I will try in short. Richard was born in a family that shortly after his birth, his mother was had some issues, health issues, and she was unable to take proper care for him. And so by the time he was 6 months old, he was beginning to get sick. The older he got, the worse he got. He developed kwashiorkor, he had scabies. From head to toe, he was very weak, he was dehydrated. Basically, he was starving to death and he was dying. And one day his mother went to a witch doctor to try to get some help, but he came back worse than ever. The father feared for that he was definitely going to lose his son. So his sister and his father took him to a clinic close to a school where I had a friend that worked. She was a nurse there, and they took the baby to her, and she was unable to do anything to help him. So they then took him to a Catholic mission hospital down the road a ways. For 2 weeks, they didn't know whether he was going to live or die, and they just kept praying over him and hoping that he would make it. In 2 weeks, they knew that he was going to make it, he was going to live. When Richard's father came back and saw him and knew that he was going to live, he was very touched, and he did not, he was afraid that if he took Richard home, that Richard would get sick again, and that time, the next time, he would not make it. So he asked my friend if she would find a home for him that would raise him and make sure that he was safe and in a good living environment. And so our family just happened to come visit my friend that weekend, and she told us about this little baby, and he was nine months old when he was taken to the hospital, but by the time we got there, he was almost 11 months old. So because of the malnourishment and the kwashiorkor and his being so ill, he was about the size of a 4-month baby. And so they said, the father's looking for a home. Would you be interested? Would you consider adopting a child? And we had not thought of that previously, but I told my husband that I was going to go and see him and meet him. So I went over to the house, and when I walked in the door and looked down, there was the most beautiful little baby boy sitting on the floor, and he just looked up at me with these great big brown eyes, and my heart just went ka-thump onto the floor, and I knew that I could not leave without taking my son home with me. And so I picked him up and just held him, and my husband was in the vehicle outside because we were preparing to go somewhere, and I took Richard in my arms, and I took him out, and I opened up the car door, and I sat him on my husband's lap, and I said, "Meet your new son." And what was so cute was that I could see my husband's heart just being pulled towards him, and he would kind of pull him away, and then I would see him kind of bring him up close, and then he kind of bring him back, because he, with the salary that we were living on, we just couldn't afford another child at the time. And yet that pull, we both just knew. We just knew that he was to be a part of our family. And Richard has 2 older brothers and an older sister. And we brought the family together. We talked about it. And we just all felt just as a family, we just felt that Richard was to be part of our family.
What is your experience or advice to anyone who would want to adopt a child outside of their race, or just adoption in general?
I would encourage it. Because we were living in this culture over here, it was just seemed very natural. Now, when we left Kenya and moved back to North Dakota, that is where we had a little bit of concern, worried about Richard. How would he fit into an all-white community? But Richard is a very people person, and we were very fortunate in that. He loved people. He didn't know anybody that was not his friend. In fact, he probably knew more people in town than I did. It always amazed me that no matter where we went, people knew, oh, Richard, hey, Richard, hi, And but I would encourage it. There's things that we were concerned about, 2 things that we considered, and that would be when we moved to a place like North Dakota, where Richard literally was the only black person in that town and in that county, I think. Richard, yeah. And so we were concerned, and there was one time when there was a racial issue with one of the students on the bus, and we went to the principal of the school, and it was dealt with. The principal was very good. She called the parents. She told them the situation. The parents apologized. The child apologized. And there really wasn't that much of an issue after that, was there, Richard?
Nope.
But I think Richard himself was a very big part in that whole process, because he was such a people person that it was easy. People were just drawn to him, and I still are, I believe.
Well, what's your advice?
My advice? Adopt. Saving, you adopt a child, you save a life. You have the opportunity to make a difference in somebody's life. We haven't been perfect parents to you, but would I trade this experience for anything in the world? No. I couldn't love this guy, and he hates us when I do this. But I would not trade this experience for anything in the world. I couldn't love him more if he was the son of my womb. But he's the son of my heart, and I wouldn't trade this experience for anything. There.
All right. Well, that's a very biased opinion. There's my story in a nutshell. You can thank Jan for the sentimental moments. But yeah, hopefully you'll enjoy, and I will see you guys next time.
Bye.